Welcome back. As in the previous little videos that we've had here, we've been playing with the idea of two islands in a boat, and we've seen that people can move from a place that's less agreeable towards a place that's more agreeable in some form or other. This might take time. We can plan for what would help and what would get in the way. That's nice. And we could begin here by having a conversation about the problem. What is it that gambling's doing in your life? Or we could start here with what is the reputation you are hoping for yourself? Or what is it that you're longing for in life? Or again, if you woke up tomorrow and everything was right, what would it be? There's a third place that we can start. Oftentimes people take actions in their lives. Thinking, desiring that things be different is an action. But I might be parenting in a certain style, and then one day I might do something out of the blue that's quite different. Take the kids out to get an ice cream, or take the kids to the movies, or whatever. That an action that somehow stands against the problem, or even perhaps an action that's part of the problem. I don't know if this is too risky, but I might smack my children as part of the recipe for parenting that I've got. Yeah? And at the first place, that looks like, okay, let's not do that. But what we're about to look at now allows us to look at people's actions and sift them for what it is that's important to them, what their actions say about the sort of person they're desiring to become. And we're calling this, in this little diagram, action as purpose. In narrative therapy literature, it's more commonly called absent but implicit.
Yep.
I just find the word implicit a little difficult to say. And it blows in that direction, which is why I've drawn it as a wind blowing in that direction. So let's take a moment to look at action as purpose. This conversation map is quite clear, and it's very helpful just to follow it through. It doesn't matter if you wind off and talk about other stuff, but I find it helpful to have the track in my mind to help people move from I did this thing towards where it goes. So let's have a look at this little map, which says we take a person's action. Just a tiny little word about the idea of when we look at people's actions, we can look at what people do and we can think, this is a bad person. We can look at what people do and we can think, there's something wrong with this person. And there's a third way that I'm proposing, that we can look at what people do and we can wonder, I wonder what they were intending. Or I wonder what their hopes were for that action. Because even quite negative actions, well, certainly almost always, have some kind of hope involved in them. So we take a person's action and we ask them, what were your intentions? What were your purposes in taking that action? What were you trying to achieve? And when they tell to us, so I might smack my son, I might, and if I did that, my intention might be to stop him doing whatever it was he was doing, walking on a road or some such thing. Yeah. So then I can ask, well, what were you hoping would come from that? And my hope might be something like, I would hope that he would learn that stepping off a curb is not a safe thing to do. One ought not do that. Yeah. So my hope is that. So I've done an action, smacking him, but my hope is something quite good. Yeah. So now we can ask, when you think about that hope, what does it tell us about what's important for you? My hope is that my son would learn road safety in this relatively trite example. What is it about that that's important to you? What are you valuing there? And it might be something like, well, I want my son to have road safety.
Safety, yeah, exactly.
So I might be valuing safety, and it might be, I want my son to be able to move freely around in the world, or I want my son to grow up with some sense of the ability to live in this society well, or whatever it is. There's some sense of value implicit, there's that word, within this action.
Yeah.
Now we might look at the action and say, I don't agree with that action.
Sure.
But when we get to here, we can often agree with the hopes and the values that are implicit within that action.
That's right. even if there was a better way of living that value.
It may well
Yeah.
be a better way to go about it.
Sure. Yeah.
But the idea of the value is a good one. Now we can begin to ask, if that value were to shape the way you parent, if that value were to shape your family, the broad question here is, how does this value shape your world? But it's the world that's particular to this person. So if this value were to shape the way you parent your son, what shape would it have? What effect would it have?
Right.
If this value of, I want my son to be safe and well, so how would it shape your world, however small or big that world is? And lastly, we can ask, who knows that about you? Some sense of community. Who knows that you care about what it is that your son grows up as? Who knows that you care about his future in these ways?
Yeah.
Because these hopes and values stand in a community of people in some way or other. Having done that, we can then look at these values, these hopes for the world that you've got. How might we achieve them differently? How else might we go about that in a way which doesn't require this particular action?
Yep. I'm just not 100% clear on this bit,
Yep.
Donald. Can you say a little bit more about world and
Yeah.
the shaping of?
Yeah. Let's imagine for a moment that the action was I go gambling and my intention is to make some money because my hope is to pay the bills.
Yep.
Then the value that's implicit within that is something about I want to look after my family, shall we say? Yep. So if the value of I want to look after my family could shape my family, if it had its way,
Right.
if I woke up tomorrow morning and it was this value that was at work in my life, what would my family look like? So in
Right.
this sense, the world is family.
I see.
Yeah? Or what
Yeah.
might my parenting style look like? Or yeah? So I'm just
Yeah.
using the world as a proxy for
Okay.
what effect would this value have in your life, in your
Yeah,
world,
Yeah.
if it could have its way.
I like the phrase you just used. So, what would that look like? Would seem to. What would that look like in your context, or in your family, or in your whatever? Yeah. Okay.
And just a little word to connect this back to an earlier piece of talking. We can, in a sense, we can go back to that map 2 or the second island conversation here. If you were living in this world, what effects would that have? What effects would it have for you physically? What effects would it have for you mentally? What effects would it have for you relationally? We could explore all those effects and stand back from that and say, is this okay with you? And why? So we could use this model of the second island or that map statement of position, map 2, to thicken the description of the effects of this value in your world.
Right.
Ka pai?
Sure.
And the whole point is either, if the action is preferred by the person, it really helps them to get a sense of, and this is who I am. This is who I'm becoming. And if this action is something that is not preferred, it gives us a solid place to stand, a kind of an ethical place to stand, with which to then ask, how else might we do this differently?
Sure.
And so we're calling that action as purpose.